My name is Gwendolyn. I'm sitting in my new office, looking out at the bustling manufacturing facility that's now under my care. It's been a little over a year since I was unceremoniously sacked from my previous job, and as I reflect on the journey, it's a tale of resilience, rediscovery, and rising above adversity. Not too long ago, I was in the middle of checking a shipment in this very facility when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something in me urged me to pick up. It was Glenn. He'd worked in receiving at my old job, in the Zone B warehouse. He was calling to say goodbye and to thank me. 3 years ago, he'd made a colossal mistake, mixing up 2 shipments that cost the company thousands. He was terrified he'd lose his job. I found him panicking in the loading area and told him mistakes happen. I stayed 4 hours after my shift to help him sort it out and never let on that it was his fault in the report. Glenn said that when I got fired, everyone in the old company felt sick. I'd been there for so long, helping out, covering for mistakes, and teaching others how to do things right. But the powers that be had just tossed me aside like I was nothing. His call made me realize that my firing had sent a message throughout the company, showing everyone how little loyalty meant there. And after that, a lot of people left because if they could do that to me, they could do it to anyone. Thinking back, it all started 9 years ago. I was a single mom with 2 young children, struggling to make ends meet. I needed a job, any job. When I first joined the old company, the warehouses were in shambles. Products were haphazardly thrown around, summer items were buried under winter stock in July, and suppliers were threatening to stop working with us because our orders were a mess. The inventory position was a nightmare, and no one wanted it. But I took it because I had no choice. Those initial 6 months were brutal. I worked until midnight most nights, learning every product we carried. I found out where they came from, how fast they moved, which suppliers were reliable, and which ones needed constant follow-up. I had to figure out that seasonal items needed to rotate through different zones based on timing, that bulk orders from certain buyers needed special handling, and that some products couldn't be stored near others because of temperature or chemical reactions. I built spreadsheets to track everything, simple but functional. I color-coded zones in each warehouse and created a rotation system that made sense. I spent hours negotiating with suppliers until they trusted us again. It took 2 years of hard work before everything started running smoothly. Products flowed in and out, the numbers balanced, and suppliers finally stopped complaining. The previous director used to say that I made it all look easy. Little did he know how much blood, sweat, and tears had gone into it. Then, 2 years ago, Ethan showed up. He transferred from another location, and corporate gave him the division. He had a business degree from a well-known university and would throw around words like optimize and streamline in every meeting. He never bothered to ask me how the system worked. He just wanted reports that would make him look good in front of his superiors. Get me the numbers for last quarter. I need a breakdown by category. Make a summary. I can present. That's all he ever said to me. Ethan had this air of superiority, as if the work just happened by magic and anyone could do what I did. He'd tell people in meetings that the inventory basically ran itself. It was infuriating because it was 9 years of my knowledge and hard work packed into routines that only looked simple because I'd made them that way. One fateful morning, I was called into Ethan's office. The flickering light above cast a dim glow on the room as he sat there, looking at me with that cold, calculating stare. He smiled that same smug smile he always did when he was about to say something cruel. We're letting you go. Found someone who'll do your job for half what we pay you. Economics, you understand? He said, as casually as if he was ordering a sandwich. I was shocked, but I refused to let him see me break. I'd given 9 years of my life to that place, and this was how they repaid me. I asked about the transition, and he just told me to write down what the new guy needed to know by the end of the day. It was ridiculous. 9 years of knowledge couldn't be written down in an afternoon, and the person replacing me wouldn't understand it without context. I went back to my workspace, which was just a small area with a chair and some shelving filled with binders of supplier contacts, seasonal schedules, and product specifications. I tried to write it all down, but after 4 pages, I realized it was pointless. Ethan walked by once and asked how it was going, and I just said, "It's coming." He nodded and left, not really caring. I thought about the regional director, Henry. He'd been with the company for 25 years, overseeing 5 regions and about 220 employees. Ethan reported to someone who reported to Henry, so they'd never actually met. But Henry and I had a connection. 5 years ago, one of the new hires, a 20-year-old named Jake who was Henry's nephew, got caught stealing. There was a big meeting, and the loss prevention team wanted to prosecute him to make an example. They asked me what I thought. I looked at Jake, scared and young, and I said, "Give him counseling. Make him pay it back, but don't ruin his life over this." Henry looked at me for a long time and then nodded. Jake paid back what he stole, did counseling, and never stole again. After that, Henry started checking in with me. Every few months, we'd have breakfast at a small diner near the main warehouse. He'd ask about my work, my life, and my kids. I had a breakfast meeting with Henry scheduled for that day at 4 o'clock, but I was fired at 3:15. I debated whether to tell him or just cancel. In the end, I decided to go home and text him later. I carried my box of personal items through the building, past the break area where I'd had countless lunches, and the bulletin board with safety reminders and birthday announcements. Ethan was probably in a meeting, taking credit for cutting costs. When I got home, I made some tea and sat on the couch. My phone started buzzing. It was Henry. He was furious. He said we had a quarterly inventory review in 30 minutes and that my boss kept saying I quit. I told him Ethan had fired me, saying they found someone cheaper. Henry was shocked. He told me to stay near my phone. 20 minutes later, HR called. They were investigating the termination because it wasn't properly authorized. An hour after that, Ethan called. His voice was tight, and he said there'd been a misunderstanding. They needed me back immediately because the director wanted the inventory reports for the review and no one else could pull them together in time. He even said I was essential to operations, a word he'd never used before. I told him I'd think about it. But I didn't go back. That night, Henry called to tell me he was promoting Ethan. He'd be personally responsible for all 3 warehouses, with no support staff and no transition period. Henry said Ethan had told corporate anyone could do my job, so now he had to prove it. I was worried about the warehouses, but Henry said they'd survive. Over the next week, Ethan called me multiple times, his voice getting more and more desperate. There were problems everywhere. Winter gear couldn't be found, supplier deliveries were wrong, and the replacement he hired quit after just 4 hours, saying the job was nothing like he'd been described. I refused to go back. I'd spent 9 years building a system for someone who didn't value me. I started applying for other jobs. 3 weeks after being fired, I got an offer from a smaller manufacturing company. The owner, a woman named Olivia, was amazing. She showed me around the facility, introduced me to everyone, and asked what I needed. I told her I needed time to learn the products, suppliers, and processes. She understood. When I started, the facility was in chaos, similar to how the old warehouses were 9 years ago. But I knew what to do. I took 3 months to build a new system with color-coded zones, rotation schedules, and rebuilt supplier relationships. Olivia checked in regularly, asking how things were going and if I needed any help. Meanwhile, I heard through the grapevine that the old company was struggling. The new division manager was having a hard time because the institutional knowledge I'd built was gone, and the supplier relationships had been damaged. One of my old suppliers, Frank, who'd provided seasonal merchandise for 7 years, called me. He said the old company kept messing up orders, and he asked if I'd consider coming back. I said no, But when he asked if my new company would be interested in his seasonal merchandise, I talked to Olivia. We worked out an arrangement, and soon, 4 major suppliers from my old company switched to us. About 8 months after starting my new job, Olivia called me into her office. The company was expanding, opening a second facility across town, and she wanted me to oversee inventory for both locations. She asked me to build the new system from the ground up and train someone to help manage it. It was a huge promotion, and I was eager to take on the challenge. I hired a young assistant named Leo. He was 24 years old, eager to learn, and always asking questions. Training him was like training myself 9 years ago. He quickly picked up on everything, and within 6 months, he was handling the daily operations while I focused on the bigger picture. Looking back, being fired was the worst thing that ever happened to me at the time, but it also opened the door to something better. I'm treated with respect here, my knowledge is valued, and I'm making more money. My kids have noticed the change in me too. My daughter Lily once said I seemed lighter, like a heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders. And she was right. I'm not just moving forward, I'm thriving. As I sit here in my new office, I know that I've built more than just inventory systems. I've built a standard of work ethic and integrity, and that's something no one can ever take away from me.